Liberal MPPs scramble to clarify statements from the Energy Minister. Some new funding to ease emergency room delays. And the Transportation Safety Board provides more details on the fatal collision in Ottawa.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. Thunder Bay's two Liberal MPPs are doing damage control after comments made at Queen's Park by the Minister of Energy.
Yesterday, Bob Shirley said any future generating plant in Thunder Bay would be used for just 6 hours per year. He also gave the impression an announcement on the conversion of the plant would be coming in the next 4 weeks. But Michael Gravel and Bill Morrow are now saying those were just misunderstandings. Dennis Ward has more.
Any future generating plant in Thunder Bay will be used 6 hours per year.
Local MPPs are trying to clarify what they call misunderstandings about comments made by the Minister of Energy. One remark by Bob Shirley, where he said any future generating station in Thunder Bay would only be in use 6 hours per year, has bothered the local energy task force.
We've checked. This year alone, the plants run for 425 hours. For the minister to say 6 hours in a year, it just is not logical. And I'm hoping that he just misspoke. But if he didn't, it shows a clear indication that he doesn't understand the situation here in the Northwest.
Minister of Northern Development Michael Gravel had this to say about Shirley's comment.
He was referencing the fact that during the last year or so, when the Thunder Bay Generating Station was not in high level of use, I had heard previous reports that it had been actually functioning 6 times over the last year or so, and he may have been referencing that.
The 6 hours per year comment isn't the only misunderstanding being cleared up. In his response to a question from NDP leader Andrea Horwath over the Thunder Bay coal plant, Shirley said the government would be making an announcement in the next 3 or 4 weeks, which would include significant investments in transmission and generation. But MPP Bill Morrow says anyone left with the impression that meant the coal plant has the wrong impression. Morrow is also accusing the leaders of the opposition of playing politics over the issue.
It's a little rich to see both Tim Hudak and Andrea Horwath just be completely politically opportunistic on this issue. They committed to closing the plants. At no time have they ever gone on the record as saying they'd spend the money to convert the plants. And so it's a little bit interesting to watch them now try and appear to be champions on the file.
Dennis Ward, TBT News.
Thunder Bay's Bombardier railcar plant has been fined a total of $280,000 in connection with 2 incidents last year in which a worker suffered serious injuries. In April 2012, an employee had the tip of his finger crushed in some equipment and had to have part of the finger amputated. Then in July 2012, a worker suffered injuries to an arm and hand after coming into contact with an electrical current. Bombardier pleaded guilty in both cases for failing to ensure the safety of the workers. The conviction led to a fine of $140,000 for each incident, plus a 25% victim surcharge.
Funding announcement by the province will help with shorter wait times at the hospital and put more paramedics on the street. Today, the Liberals announced an investment of almost $230,000 for nurses dedicated to treating patients who arrive at the emergency room by ambulance. Changes at the hospital in the spring have helped greatly, and the additional funding will mean better patient care for those who need it. Matt Scooby has more.
When you call 911 and need an ambulance, the expectation is that it'll be there in minutes. Since 2009, that hasn't always been the case because paramedics are stuck in the hallways of the Regional Health Sciences Center with non-critical patients. But with some changes this past spring and the additional funding announced today, that's no longer the case.
It's better for patients because they get into the emergency department quicker and see a physician, and it's better for patients because we respond to them at their home or at the accident on the road quicker, and they get medical care from a paramedic. What it does is it frees up our ambulances and frees up our paramedics from the hospital, where we don't want them to be, to go on the road where we do want them to be, so they can respond when that 911 call comes in.
The new strategy at the hospital for ambulance offloading includes patients being placed in different parts of the department, as well as an offload nurse who cares for patients with non-life-threatening conditions. Those changes were put in place this spring, and in a comparison of June 2012 to June of this year, the number of incidents of paramedics waiting in the hallways is down over 80%.
We don't want to see our patients sitting on stretchers waiting for care. We really want to get to those patients as quickly as we can. So really coming up with the innovations that they've been able to come up with has really made a difference in terms of having patients move into different locations and really expedite the assessment process and have their time to care shortened. So we've been able to see some real improvements in our wait times in our emergency department as well.
Crocker Ellicott adds that the funding will be used for having additional nurses in the emergency room during peak ambulance offloading hours. Thunder Bay Superior North MPP Michael Gravel says this is an issue all across the province, but teamwork is what's helped fix it locally.
And I do think what we learned is that this is a real solution to a problem that was, quite frankly, bedeviling a number of agencies for a number of years. So you feel pretty excited to be part of an announcement that's made such a very clear and significant difference in terms of improving healthcare and the delivery of healthcare in your community.
The total number of hours that paramedics have spent waiting in the hospital is also down over 70%. The hope is that those decreases will help lower the EMS variance for this year, which was projected at $315,000 after the second quarter. Matt Scooby, TBT News.
Thunder Bay Transit officials are trying to alleviate concerns over the upcoming change to specialized transit in the city. Come January 1st, Thunder Bay Transit will take over the service from Haggie Transit. That's caused some Haggie users to worry about whether they'll still be eligible to use specialized transit or if they'll be forced to take the city bus. Transit officials outlined their latest accessibility plan at an open house last night. Acting Accessibility Advisory Committee Chair Tessa Soderberg says after hearing the details of the plan, she's not worried.
Basically, from what I gather, things are going to be the same and they're going to be improving over the next, once they take over in January, it looks like it's only going to be going up from there.
From a customer's perspective who relies on specialized transit, there will be no real impacts that they'll notice whatsoever. So we're just here to calm some of those fears that people might have.
Thunder Bay Transit welcomes input from riders on ways to improve the service. Contact information is available on the transit website.
A couple of arrests for Thunder Bay police overnight. The first came just after 1 this morning as police were running a ride program on Oliver Road near Lakehead University. Officers say they observed a man approach a group of people on the street and randomly assaulted 2 other men. The attacker then ran from the scene, but he was apprehended by police a short distance away from the brief struggle. The victims and an officer were treated at the scene for minor injuries. A 28-year-old city man has been charged. And around 2:30 this morning, a 911 call alerted police to a break-and-enter at a Van Norman Street business. A member of the cleaning staff heard the sound of breaking glass and found a man kicking in a side glass door. The intruder then picked up a piece of the broken glass and threatened the worker. He was able to exit the building and call police. A 24-year-old Pickle Lake man was apprehended nearby and taken off to jail.
And police are looking for the public's help in finding a suspect involved in a break-and-enter at a local pet store overnight. Just before midnight, police say a man smashed the glass door at Thunder Pet on Red River Road and then entered the building. The suspect then stole the cash register and fled the scene. The man is described as 5'8" with a thin build. At the time of the robbery, he was wearing jeans, white runners, and a hoodie. Police are also investigating 8 other similar break-and-enters that occurred over the past 48 hours. At this time, it's unknown if the robberies are connected. Anyone with information is asked to call Thunder Bay Police or Crime Stoppers.
Despite a miserable start to the summer, Thunder Bay's tourism division is happy with the trends they saw this year. 2013 is shaping up to be stable overall compared to previous years, with modest growth in emerging sectors while traditional tourism markets declined. Tara Allaire reports.
Traditional hunting and angling markets are on the decline, while increased border security and currency parity contributed to a 2% drop in visitors at the Pigeon River border crossing. Manager of Tourism Paul Pepe says though tourism is struggling in some areas, they're making up for it in others. Pepe says big gains have been made in motorcycle tourism. He says turning leisure campaigns from city-centric to regional partnerships has helped reach new markets.
What we've seen this year, particularly the motorcycle traffic, really shoot up. We've really been able to reach out to that growing segment in the travel community and focus very heavily on that. We've also started seeing that touring market come back too, that Lake Superior market come back as well. So even though we're continuing to see struggles on the angling side, on the hunting side, we're seeing those markets really struggle, particularly on the U.S. side. We are seeing some of those drops being made up with the motorcycle tourism and the touring markets in general.
The city hosted a number of national and provincial sporting events this summer and featured a large festivals and events calendar. The increasingly popular Ribfest and Bluesfest have had a major impact on tourism.
Those things really help because, bikers and touring markets, they'll plan their itineraries, they'll plan their trips around those things. So they'll stay an extra day in the city if there's something like a Ribfest or a Bluesfest. So all those do play a very important role in helping us get more visitors here. But what's equally important for us is to get the visitors that are coming to stay longer, to stay that extra day, to spend more money in the community. And getting visitors to stay longer and spend more is just as important as attracting a greater number of visitors.
Tourism contributes about $130 million annually to Thunder Bay's economy. Conventions and conferences held within the city have seen an increase due to competitive airfare in and out of the airport. Another strong sign is the Terry Fox Visitor Center traffic, up 26% since 2012. Pepe says the focus for the coming year is on increasing the stay of visitors to the city. Tara Allaire, TBT News.
OPP in Fort Francis continuing to investigate a single vehicle accident that left 3 people injured. Police say the crash happened just before 5 o'clock this morning when a car traveling eastbound on 2nd Avenue at a high rate of speed struck 2 hydro poles. The 3 occupants managed to get out of the car before it burst into flames. All 3 had to be transported to hospital with what are described as significant injuries.
It's a massive project that's expected to create thousands of jobs while generating over $35 billion for the Canadian economy. TransCanada Pipeline is making stops in the Northwest this month, delivering information on the proposed Energy East crude oil project. Open houses were held in Kenora, Vermilion Bay, Dryden, and Ignace this past week. Jonathan Wilson reports.
Many employees from TransCanada were on hand at an open house in Ignace, addressing questions and concerns over the pipeline project. And so far on the tour, officials from the company say they've been getting a warm reception from the communities they've been visiting. Due to a 50% decline in natural gas use, the company says it's feasible to use parts of their natural gas pipeline for the transport of various types of crude oil. 70% of existing pipeline will be used for the Energy East project, with an additional 1,400 kilometers of new pipeline needed. Ignace Mayor Lee Kennard is on board with the project, even though there may not be any long-term jobs for his community.
There will be a lot of work for putting the line in and the new pumping stations and that. Everybody's on board. It seemed like it would be a good project. That certainly the oil will go much safer down the pipeline than it will by truck or train. So I think it's good for the whole country.
Kennard does acknowledge there will be an increase in business in the area while the pipeline through the Northwest is being converted. All of the new pipeline construction will happen in the West, in New Brunswick and Quebec. There will also be 2 marine terminals to be constructed for export from eastern refineries to a global market. In Ontario, TransCanada officials say jobs will be created at all stages of the project.
During the development phase, it's a little over 500 jobs. During the construction phase, it's close to 1,800, and during the operation phase, it's close to 200 jobs that will be created along the route of the pipeline.
So far, Ignace residents seem to be on board with the project as long as it is done responsibly. And spending from pipeline employees into the local economy will be well received.
Probably have a lot more people traveling through for the construction phase, and if they're doing that, they'll stop and they'll spend money, and we need it in this town.
TransCanada expects to file its application to the National Energy Board next year. The approval process could take an additional 24 months. TransCanada will be in Thunder Bay for an open house on Tuesday, followed by stops in Nipigon on Wednesday and Geraldton on Thursday. Jonathan Wilson, TBT News.
The Supreme Court of Canada has agreed to hear a challenge of the Ontario government's right to permit industrial logging on the traditional lands of the Grassy Narrows First Nation. The First Nation appealed after Ontario's highest court ruled in March that the province has the right to take up treaty land for forestry and mining. The First Nation has spent nearly 15 years in court fighting the province's decision to issue a license for clear-cut operations in part of the Kuwaitan portion of Treaty 3 territory. Chief Simon Fobister says Ontario continues to plan for clear-cut logging throughout Grassy Narrows territory and is seeking input on a new 10-year forest management plan that includes dozens of large clear-cuts.
The Gull Bay First Nation had a special visitor this week. Margaret Anderson came to the reserve to announce that her foundation, with community partners, will be helping students achieve a high school diploma. The new pilot program will help people on the reserve develop valuable life skills. Nate Jones reports.
We should be looking after our own.
Margaret Anderson recognizes a need in the First Nations communities in Gull Bay and across the region. The foundation contributed $300,000 to help launch this pilot education program to address this need. It kicked off Monday with students meeting facilitators and community partners. The program is unique because it incorporates a holistic cultural component as well as pre-employment counseling.
They might not feel the courage or motivation or even a pathway, not even realizing a pathway that can make them reach their goals. So that's what I think is something that might be lacking.
There were over 25 referrals to the program, which is expected to run a full school year. Initially, it will take 10 students from the reserve with the option of expanding to 15. Lakehead Public Schools Adult Education will be supplying a teacher that will help them gain the credits students need to get a high school diploma. 19-year-old student Dallas King feels these positive steps towards a future will help him gain a renewed confidence.
I feel like I'm a good role model doing positive stuff that the younger people will look up to me and do what I do, positive stuff.
Foundation founder Margaret Anderson now runs a cancer hospice in Southern Ontario. Being born in Thunder Bay, she wanted to make a difference in the Aboriginal community. She traveled to Gull Bay to meet with the participants.
There are so many other huge problems with our First Nations people that have been neglected and ignored. That's a start. Once you start educating some of your own people, then they can attack some of these problems. That's what I hope will happen in the future.
Anderson adds that the $300,000 allotted to the program is just the start. She says that there will be additional funding if needed, as long as it takes. Nate Jones, TBT News.
Well, thanks to modern medicine, people don't typically die of AIDS like in decades past. However, the HIV virus continues to spread. But officials with AIDS Thunder Bay are trying to put a stop to that as well. Yesterday evening, this passionate group of residents participated in the 18th annual AIDS Walk for Life. The 3-kilometer walk took place on Memorial Avenue. The event raised more than $7,000 for AIDS Thunder Bay, far surpassing the charity's $5,000 goal. Acting Executive Director Holly Govan hopes to soon see a time where there are no newly contracted cases of HIV.
Presently, we have approximately 300 members in our community that are affected by HIV, and so it's important to remember that and to continue to be vigilant and to continue to spread the message on how it's transmitted and how it can be prevented and how somebody can continue to live with the virus if they do contract it.
HIV is transmitted primarily via unprotected sex and the sharing of used needles. However, it can also spread through contaminated blood transfusions or from mother to child during pregnancy. Govan encourages everyone to get tested regularly for the disease.
Celebrity chef Corbin is in Thunder Bay preparing a gourmet 4-course meal. The star of the Food Network's Dinner Party Wars and Restaurant Makeover will host and cook for guests at a special dinner tonight. Chef Corbin is in town to help raise funds to support regional renal services. The meal, that includes everything from pickerel and bison to elk and some vegetarian options, will help the hospital buy badly needed dialysis units. He says food brings people together and is a fantastic way to support a great local cause.
It's not necessarily about the ingredients, it's not necessarily about the food part, because chefs talk about how the tomato is grown, they talk about, the cow is massaged and where everything comes from. That's great, but for me it's a given. But for me, more importantly, it's the experiences that are created around or through food. And you know what? We're raising money for a great cause around food. We're creating memorable experiences through food. And if I can get people to associate that and support a great cause, then it's a no-brainer. It's a winning formula.